Can go. This is a great week, my friends, because it brings to focus how much the world absolutely despises everything Donald Trump is doing. And let me tell you, he has brought this on himself. Donald Trump, as you know, is a ratings obsessed man. He likes to win at everything. And the numbers do not lie. Let's take a look here. These are new poll numbers that came out from the Washington Post and ABC News. And I want to break these out for you. This is presidential job approval rating at or near 100 days. The beautiful lime green line is the approval rating, and the peach one is disapproval. And we are looking at this going all the way back to Truman. And if you can see here, the approval rating, for Truman and his 100-day mark was 87%. Let's move ourselves to the 21st century and see actually how you start looking at George W. Bush. His approval rating in his first 100 days was 63% with a 32% approval rating. Our friend Barack Obama, by our friend, I mean all of our friends. He's not my friend. President Barack Obama was at 69% approval and 26% disapproval. Let's take a look at Biden. Biden had a what do we have? 52% approval, 42% disapproval. What does Donald Trump have here in his second term? 39% approval rating, just 39%. That is pathetic. That is pathetic. Only 39% of the public in this poll, 39% approve of him. 55% disapproval rating. What's significant here is there has not been another president. We look all the way back to Truman, where the disapproval rating crossed that line into the majority disapprove, the majority. And he's at 55% disapproval. He's even worse than his last time in office. And let's take another look at this. Because I want you to see here how much he sucks. What you see here is another chart. And let me break this one out for you. This other chart is, I think you're going to have to see this like this. This other chart also shows Donald Trump sucks. And I think we love to see that. But this is specifically comparing, not comparing him to anyone else, but just going category by category. Again, at 100 days, this is an ABC News, Washington Post, IPSOS poll. I guess IPSOS is the company who does the polling, and WAPO and ABC News together helped commission it. Okay, so let's look in terms of job approval. We already spoke about that, but that anchors you on the left. 39% approve, and then 55% disapprove. How about how he's doing with the economy? People are asked whether the economy is better, worse, or the same since he took office. 53% said it is worse. Only 21% said it was better. So if you combine those together, if you can do a little math, we are talking about 78% of people either think the economy is worse or hasn't changed. This man promised to improve the economy. This man lied and said it sucked. So that means, in his view, it still sucks, I guess. Okay, what about prices for things you want or need? 62% said they are going up. Prices for what you want or need. Didn't he say he was going to bring prices down? Only 11% said the prices were going down, and 27% said they were the same. So here again, we have 89% of the public either saying prices are going up or they've stayed the same. Remember, he campaigned on that beautiful word groceries, promised he'd bring prices down. That's a huge failure. Now, this is even more damning. They were asked, the people polled, whether the likelihood of Trump's policies causing a recession. 72% said likely, and 26% said unlikely. This is, I don't know. I don't know how you can do much worse than this, but I know he actually will. So, guys, this is where he is at 100 days. Now, you might say to me, why am I cheering about this? We're all going to suffer. Well, people need to wake the fuck up. That's how politics has always worked. We've talked before about FDR, how he understood that, back then the president came into office in early March, not late January. And he was approached by Hoover to say, should we go together, make some sort of public speech, calm the markets? And no, he waited. And he waited strategically because he knew how much suffering there was right then in the country. And he also knew unless he took charge and fixed things, the suffering would continue. We would bleed out. And so finally, when he did take office right after he was sworn in, he basically did, it was called a bank holiday, and they shut down all the banks and only opened the ones that he thought were viable. He was able to, in his first 100 days in office, enact sweeping legislation to help separate high-risk investment banking from what was supposed to be safe, staid commercial lending banking. He was able to set forth the first time there were federal regulation of the securities markets, and on and on and on. And Roosevelt began a major turnaround and also helped create what I think is good, the administrative state, where we have experts with delegated authority from Congress helping regulate products and services so they're more safe. This is exactly what Donald Trump and his team are trying to undo, by the way. So I say, here's the deal. I didn't make this happen, but if people wake up and you see these poll numbers and they think shit is bad now, wait till they hear about what is happening next. And so I need to tell you to prepare you, because you probably already realize this. So you know how Donald Trump put into place a tariff regime independent from Congress, seemingly. And there's so many different tariffs, import taxes on goods that have to be paid by U.S. businesses as well as passed on to us, right? You know how that was the plan. And he was always saying, oh, U.S. consumers don't pay. They won't suffer. He said, people said, no, American businesses that import goods from China, if you're an American business, you will pay the tariff, right? Similarly, if you're directly sending stuff to the U.S., then it's going to be at the port of entry. If you're someone who's a small business, you are going to pay it. Also, if you are a US based business who has, maybe a sister or brother company in China, you're paying the tariff. That's the whole point. The tax is paid by the businesses. And so we're finding out now, and this is sarcastic, Doug Henwood saying, oh, but I thought China was paying. This is what apparently popped up on his iPhone. He put this on Blue Sky. 2 Bloomberg stories popped up. These are his notices. One says how Trump's China tariffs are set to unleash a supply shock on the U.S. economy. And he also wrote, Temu appears to be passing on nearly all new import taxes to U.S. consumers, more than doubling the cost of some products. No, my friends, China is not paying. But there are 2 important things in there. The fact that Temu, the company that sells, clothing and other those types of products, the fact that they're going to double their prices to U.S. consumers is only one thing. Their prices are cheap, so maybe we buy less of that. That is not the whole story. And the whole story is about to follow. And you need to brace yourself, because we are going to have a major economic crisis, and Donald Trump is probably going to respond to it the same way he did before, by trying to find checks to send to all of us, because this is going to be fucking disastrous. So the deal is, despite the fact that Donald Trump did not have the legal authority to impose many of these tariffs, and we'll talk about that in a moment, right? Despite that, he did it anyway. And law moves as slowly as molasses in January. I hope that you have seen that now. So while the law and the lawsuits crank along, he's already created chaos and havoc by announcing and unannouncing and describing all kinds of tariffs, mainly now, hugely now, not mainly, I mean, they're across the globe, right? We saw these really bizarrely calculated import taxes. But he has set his sights on China, and he stupidly thinks he can win a trade war with China. So even though we just described how things coming into China might cost twice as much to the consumer, that's not the fucking problem, my friends. The problem is that cargo ships from China to the US have declined to such a substantial level that even if tomorrow morning Donald Trump said, I've seen the light of day, or even if tomorrow morning Donald Trump was somehow magically pushed out of office, or even now, in an hour from now, if something happened and he was no longer president, or he was convinced to change his tariff, his trade war, it's too late for now. The die is cast. This is a very long process, and we are set now for the die is cast, and we are going to see later this week, next week, into May, and throughout the summer, because he's not going to turn around that quickly. This man will touch a hot stove 1,000,000 times and still tell you it was your fault. So the deal here, guys, is that we are going to be seeing empty shelves, but that's not even the biggest problem. Think about the supply chain. So I want to share with you what I'm talking about here. Josh Marshall of Talking Points Memo has an amazing description of this. And I'm going to give you some experts in a moment, but I want to lay this out first. So he says he said people aren't really paying attention to this. This is something he wrote yesterday. He said, but pretty soon we're going to have real product shortages beginning in mid-May or so, and these are locked in. And he said there may be 1,000 miles out in the Pacific Ocean, right? So think of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California, 1,000 miles. And he said modern trade takes place in gargantuan container ships. I think you've seen if you've ever seen what these look like, I think you know. And he said there are already very detailed records of this. Now, I'm going to go to Josh Marshall in a moment, but I want to share with you first what he's talking about. So you would see this, Barron's. You might not read Barron's, Josh Marshall does. And here's what's going on. President Donald Trump's tariff war is sharply slowing traffic on a major shipping route between China and the United States. The pain of a near standstill in goods shipments could spread from trucking companies to retail shelves in a matter of weeks. Here's the data. Ocean container bookings from China to the United States fell, brace yourself, 64% in the first week of April compared with the same week earlier, according to logistics data platform Vision. Overall imports to U.S. also fell 64%. Categories with the most dramatic drops included imports of apparel, fabrics, and other textiles, they said. Okay, what else, though? So Catherine Rampell said, and so it's not just, I just want to be clear with you here. You may say, okay, I don't need a lot of clothes. Fine. Well, have you ever thought about it's not just about you? Think about that shipping route. All the people who are unloading containers at ports, if there's 64% less containers to unload, then there's 64% less, at least, or around, let's assume, jobs of people unloading at the ports. And how about the trucks that transport the goods from the West Coast, whether it's California or Oregon or Washington State, and they're trucking those products from the containers. The containers just you can just snap back on the back of a truck, and they're trucking those often across the country to distribution centers. How many truckers do you need? 64% less? I mean, I don't know the exact math here, but let's just go with this simple. And then you get to the distribution centers. How many people do you need to unload them there? And on and on and on. Now, let's look at this too. Catherine Rampell, who often appears on CNN, fabulous news reporter, she said people are downplaying this. She said, I've heard executives and Wall Street analysts take comfort in the fact that consumer spending has held up, even as consumer views of the economy are tanking. And I say, after all, revealed preferences matter. And she said, but I wonder how much of that disconnect could be explained by cases like this. So a reader sent this into her. Let me read this to you. Okay. So the question she asked readers, have you expedited or delayed a purchase because of how prices may change? My friends, this one is so telling. This is a reader. In the past 2 weeks, I have canceled a purchase of over $5,000 in camera gear. I bought new tires and a battery, and I had all repairs needed done to my car. And at the low mileage I drive, it should be good until 2029. I just had Costco deliver enough toothpaste, dish soap, toilet paper, etc. to last a year. I would have bought more, but I don't have the storage place. I withdrew a large sum of money from the bank and stuck it under the mattress. Well, gosh, that's not the best idea, but I'm glad he didn't put his address on here. From when my Social Security and VA benefits checks are lost by Doge. I inventoried my closet and bought enough clothing and shoes to last until 2029. My PC and laptop are nearly new, but I did buy a new smartphone. I also bought a new mattress and bedding and towels. Holy shit, I hope when he bought the new mattress, he put the money under the new one. Anyway, he bought a new vacuum cleaner. Now I'll just sit things out until that vile, amoral, orange pancake makeup wearing career criminal and psychopath is gone. Okay. I found that extremely compelling. I'm not encouraging you to go out and raid the supermarket shelves and get more toilet paper than you need or what have you. But there is a feeling that people are feeling like February of 2020. Right now, end of April 2025, there are a lot of people thinking about, is this going to be 2 years? This person's thinking 4 years. So if you're looking, I think Catherine Rampell's point here is if you're just looking at how consumers are spending, you're not considering why they're spending or what they are spending on. Okay, now what else do we have? This is more Josh Marshall, and here's where he's talking about things being baked in. Friends, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm giving you the fucking reality. You can choose how to act accordingly. Now, Josh Marshall said, okay, so it hits the West Coast first. Then it shows up in Chicago a week or so later as rail and trucking freight drop off. Then on the East Coast, as ships don't arrive there, it's not just, obviously we have the Atlantic Ocean as well. Ships can go that way and so on, or down. I'm not a shipping expert, so you probably know more about the supply chain, but through the Panama Canal, what have you, and up the East Coast. He said, this is Josh Marshall, editor of Talking Points Memo. I was talking to one regional banker in the Mid-Atlantic who told me that after the first week of May, that's after next week. I know May is this Thursday, but you know what I'm saying. After the first week of May, there are simply no ships from China arriving. No ships from China. Whatever the precise specifics, the point is that this is already locked in. So we're talking about going from 64% down to no ships from China. Other countries ship things, guys. But the severe drop off has already happened, but it's all offset by weeks because the Pacific Ocean is big and ocean freight speed is relatively slow. And then Josh added, and it has knock-on effects in domestic shipping. It will hit trucking hard, but that's still a couple weeks away. Even if you have roughly a 50% drop-off in volume that shows up not just as rising costs, but shortages. And this is where he says, even if Trump tomorrow called everything off, you'd still have a significant period of shortages locked in. And obviously, that's not going to happen, meaning the part about him calling it off. We will also almost certainly see a limited version of the supply chain snarls we saw during the pandemic. There are reports of some containers simply sitting or being abandoned in ports. Also, when there's no product, you start laying off truckers or independents do something else. So when the product comes back online, the system to move the product out of port doesn't come back immediately. So that's a situation if Donald Trump said, okay, I changed my mind, waves his wand and says, let's go back to the way it was. The upshot is that we've already locked in a long, hot import summer, regardless of what happens now. So, friends, this is the deal. This is the deal. So, I hear you, and you're probably thinking, can you just cheer us up with something else? And so, sure, guys. Sure. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the fact that we are not taking this lying down. Even though it's going to be apparent in the coming weeks and months how fucked up shit is, right? I think that the public is getting it, as are the news, stations. So first, I want to share with you. Let's go back to how Donald Trump sucks. Let's talk about what was going on in terms of his ratings, and then let's talk about people waking up to what is going on with the tariffs. Okay, here we go.
I'm going to start with the economic numbers that we're seeing in our new poll out this morning. They're pretty brutal. 64% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's handling of inflation. 65% disapprove of his handling of tariffs. 61% disapprove of his overall handling of the economy. On immigration, a majority of Americans, 53%, disapprove as well.
Now, why do you think it could be that, I don't know, Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of immigration? Could it be that in addition to all the people that we know have been exported, people who are either here with green cards or here as undocumented people in violation of civil, not criminal law, who were sent to a prison camp in El Salvador, whether they were originally from Venezuela or from El Salvador or from elsewhere, right? We've been following that in Kilmar, Abrego Garcia, and others. But I'm sure you heard over the weekend horrifically that 3 small children were, and I think the word they've been using is deported, but you can't deport citizens. 3 small children were exiled out of the United States, despite the fact that they did have, in one case, a father who was an American citizen here trying to keep the children. But they did this so quickly that in one instance, the mother, because she is not documented, was left with a choice of they were pushing the mom out of the country. So she had no choice but to bring the child with her. But this is not acceptable. They did not give sufficient process. So let's listen to what is going on and how bad it is.
The ACLU in Louisiana, and I'm just going to tell you what we've received from them. Today, in the early hours of the morning, the New Orleans ICE field office deported at least 2 families, including 2 mothers and their minor children, 3 of whom are U.S. citizens. U.S. citizen children aged 2, 4, and 7, and one of the mothers from these 2 families is currently pregnant. These are families, according to the ACLU, who were arrested on Tuesday of this week and Thursday of this week. In both cases, according to the ACLU, ICE held the families incommunicado, refusing or failing to respond to multiple attempts by attorneys and family members to contact them. But again, they're describing these whole families being deported, including U.S. citizen children. In the case of one of these 2 families, quote, one of the citizen children suffers from a rare form of metastatic cancer and was deported without medication or the ability to consult with the child's treating physicians, despite ICE being notified in advance of the child's urgent medical needs. I don't expect that you know anything about this before getting on the air to talk to me about it tonight. Again, this is just broken in the last couple of minutes. But let me just ask your reaction to this breaking news.
Yeah, I'm just seeing these same reports. It is sickening that children are being deported. U.S. citizens are being deported, which we know is illegal. And which we know is also just inhumane. The idea that they are taking these children, there has been no due process. From what I can see from the reports, essentially, these agents are trying to rush through the process, trying to get people, ship them out of this country as fast as possible, giving them no real chance to go through the courts or through the process. And now we are deporting U.S. citizens, let alone children, to other countries, to Honduras, to other places. And what people need to understand, people in not just Democrats, but across this country, is we have to bring attention to this issue. This is an issue that's not just about immigration. It's about due process in this country. It's about the Constitution. It's about the kind of country that we're going to be and how we're going to treat the people that are here, whether they're citizens or they're coming to our country seeking help. And so this idea that now we're sending U.S. citizens is both shocking to all of us, but should also anger us and continue to get out there and protest and continue to get out there and call out what Trump is doing to our country and to certainly people that are coming here for help.
Congressman Robert Garcia of California, thank you for what you did today, what you did this week, and with your colleagues going to El Salvador, being able to come back and talk to us about it in a way that we haven't otherwise been able to get.
It's horrific. And the United States is becoming a pariah nation. And as much as you and I want to say, but we didn't vote for the guy, we have to stop this. And I guess what I would say is the world knows. The world knows. And I want to share with you this, another thing. In the face of all of this, right? The ratings obsess Donald Trump. The numbers don't lie. But you know what he hates even more than bad ratings? He hates someone else being celebrated and him not being the center of attention, which brings us to the fact that he did show up for the funeral this weekend of Pope Francis. And apparently more than 20,000 people were there, I don't think inside of the basilica, but in the surrounding areas to commemorate the life of Pope Francis. And, people were quietly entering in to this space to pay their respects. And, we can watch Donald Trump ambling in, and this jackass doesn't have enough class to wear a black suit to a funeral. He has something really wrong with him. We've talked about this. He can only wear the same blue suit. Someone persuaded him not to wear a red tie. That was big of him. So there he is ambling in. And then when Vladimir Zelensky came in, huge applause erupted. Let's play that.
Describe what it is like there in the square, because I was just overcome. The tens of thousands of people from all around the world, and they're relatively quiet, waiting for this moment as they're thinking about what Pope Francis meant to them. Loud applause for President Zelensky of Ukraine. Wow. The crowd is erupting for Zelensky.
That warms my heart. The crowd is erupting for Zelensky. He is cornered by two of the most craven, self-centered, awful men on the globe, right? Vladimir Putin and his puppet, Donald Trump. These are bad people, and the world knows it. And even if there's no way to stop them now, people are registering that any way that they can. Which brings me to this, and we're going to get back to the tariffs in a moment. But strength in numbers, strength in our voices, any which way we can put our bodies in the way of what is to come. I mean, the deal is when I say shelves are going to be empty and people are going to be laid off, don't think for a minute that Donald Trump is going to own that. He will find more people to scapegoat. He will not take the blame. And when economic conditions decline, either he's going to try to do what he did during COVID and prop things up from the ground up, which would be good for us. But even so, he is still going to find his scapegoats, and nobody is safe from that. And so I want to share with you someone with a tremendous amount of leadership courage, Governor Pritzker of Illinois. We've raised this theme before, but I want you to hear it now. He is now also advocating mass protest. I've been told that May 1st, this Thursday, there are going to be protests nationwide in various cities. I've gone on some websites like 5051, and I'm having a hard time in my area figuring out where I'm going to go, but I understand that these are growing. I'll provide more news about that soon. But let me share with you what Pritzker had to say to another, as we love to see, round of applause.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
Now, speaking of the soapbox, as you may have heard yesterday on Sunday, sort of as the sun came up, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader of the House. In other words, if the Democrats were in charge, he would be Speaker, joined with Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, and they hung out on the Capitol steps, and people started to gather around. And what I loved about this informal gathering, this informal teach-in, is that they were dressed like normal people. I mean, let me say this differently. You know how when it's appropriate, whether it's a courtroom or a classroom or at a funeral, we wear what we're supposed to wear. And right, in certain settings in Congress, men will wear suits, others will wear hoodies. Let's not talk about Fetterman, what a disappointment. But the point is, when someone can let their hair down and dress like they would, like we do casually, I think it sends a different message. Then, I mean, as amazing as it was that Booker did this for over 24 hours, did his filibuster, that's great. It's equally great that he was sitting there with Hakeem Jeffries on the steps here as people gathered around. And I just want to share one clip of what happened yesterday. And it reminds me so much of our Frederick Douglass adage about power. And as you know, as it comes to power, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. And I was so happy that I was so happy that Cory Booker invoked the women's rights movement, suffragettes, when he spoke about demanding something from the powerful. Let me play that for you.
The great Congresswoman mentioned the Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65, Fair Housing Act of 68. How did those things happen? Do you think we got here because a bunch of senators over there one day got together on the Senate floor and Strom Thurmond pulled everybody together and said, I've seen the light. Let those Negro people have the right to vote. That's not how it happened. Do you think we got suffrage in America? The right to vote for women because a bunch of men on the House floor got together and said, hey, fellas, put it in right here, okay, on the count of three. On the count of three, women get the right to vote. Ready, 1, 2, 3, wait. No.
So what did happen? Do you want to hear? How do we get our rights?
Not how it happened. What happened first before Obergefell? And they actually decided
the gay marriage
to
case.
let people marry who they love. Did it happen at the Supreme Court first? Or did it start at Stonewall? Did it start with Harvey Milk? We've got to remember how we got here, from Selma to Seneca Falls. We are here because of the power of the people. comes from Washington. It comes to Washington.
That's right.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. Without a demand.
You see how he did that? That's right. That's right. There we go. Change does not come from Washington. It comes to Washington. We need to show up, and we will. You're seeing these themes all over the country. We can do this. We absolutely can. Now, let me tell you a little more about the tariffs, because you need to know all of this. Donald Trump has been claiming for over 2 weeks that there is going to be, the deals are happening, that they've got all these people knocking at the door and so on. But when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is confronted, he can't exactly lie, but he can kind of, shade the truth. This man is glossy, perfectly manicured, absolutely controlled, and I can just see inside of his brain that he is just spitting the fuck out of the truth. And this man has no courage. I'm going to do a compare and contrast. Let's play Scott Bessent, and then we're going to play someone else who actually has the courage of their convictions. Scott Bessent, if he had any integrity, would quit his job. Let's play this.
The Time interview with President Trump. He said that he has made 200 deals on tariffs. 200 deals? Who has he made deals with?
And let me just point out to you, how many countries are there? I mean, how many countries are there, including the ones that are just inhabited by penguins? You happen to know? It's under 200. I think it's around, 195, right? And that includes, I think, 193 member states of the United Nations, and it even includes the Vatican. So, my friends, I don't know how the fuck Donald Trump made 200 deals. But let's hear what Scott Bessent had to say about that.
Is there actually any deal at this point?
I believe that he is referring to sub-deals within the negotiations we're doing.
So Donald Trump said, we've made 200 deals. And Bessent knows that there's no fucking way there's even one deal. So he says, I think he's referring to 200 sub-deals within our negotiations. Are these concepts of a sub-deal? I mean, come on, man. Get a spine. Quit your fucking job. Let's keep listening. I know this isn't even crazy town. Wait till I get to that.
And Martha, if there are 180...
But those aren't actual deals.
Martha, if there are 180 countries, there are 18 important trading partners. Let's put China to the side because that's a special negotiation. There's 17 important trading partners, and we have a process in place over the next 90 days to negotiate with them. Some of those are moving along very well, especially with the Asian countries.
90 days, 90 deals, they said. Now it's, we only need 18. Let's put China aside. No deals, my friends. Not 200, not one. It's fucking zero. And like we said before, it's too late to save our summer. Now let's compare Scott Bessent just pedaling away under the surface, swanning across the television stations, but paddling away under the surface, trying to stay afloat. Quit your fucking job or quit your dignity. You get to choose. Now, let me tell you, last night on 60 Minutes, we had an incredible show of courage. And I think Scott Pelley can speak for himself. And then I can give you a little bit of the backstory, the legal and financial backstory, because I did fall into a little bit of a rabbit hole. Let's play it.
Tonight's last minute, a note on Bill Owens, who until this past week was executive producer of 60 Minutes. He was our boss. Bill was with CBS News nearly 40 years, 26 years at 60 Minutes. He covered the world, covered combat, the White House. His was a quest to open minds, not close them. If you've ever worked hard for a boss because you admired him, then you understand what we've enjoyed here. Bill resigned Tuesday. It was hard on him and hard on us, but he did it for us and you. Stories we pursued for 57 years are often controversial. Lately, the Israel-Gaza war and the Trump administration. Bill made sure they were accurate and fair. He was tough that way. But our parent company, Paramount, is trying to complete a merger. The Trump administration must approve it. Paramount began to supervise our content in new ways. None of our stories has been blocked, but Bill felt he lost the independence that honest journalism requires. No one here is happy about it, but in resigning, Bill proved one thing. He was the right person to lead 60 Minutes all along. I'm Scott Pelley. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.
Or will he? That is courage, right? So if you understand, I was like, okay, what the heck is this merger about, right? Why is this merger so important? And like, who owns, who owns 60 Minutes, right? So what we know is, if you know, Paramount is who we think of as owning CBS, right? But technically speaking, Paramount is owned by Senator Redstone's old company. The holding company is like, I feel like it's called National Amusements or something. I don't think this really fully, I don't think it fully matters. But what I want to tell you here is, I think it's, if you've watched the show Succession, the series, and you would probably understand what's going on here. I encourage you to watch that. So Paramount, which owns CBS and a lot of other entities, is essentially run by Sherry Redstone. So she's this major heiress who took over from Sumner Redstone. Technically speaking, the parent company is called National Amusements. Below that is Paramount Global, I believe, and then they've got CBS and all these other companies. Now, the deal is that Paramount and CBS, they're sort of part of the old like legacy media. And I know they have been struggling financially. And when we talk about it being a merger, what we're talking about is Paramount essentially being bailed out, having this outside company called Skydance infuse it with capital. And so I thought, so I'm looking into this and I'm like, who the fuck is Skydance, right? Like Paramount, I've heard of, right? We've gone to the movies. We've heard of Paramount. You've certainly heard of CBS. The other entities that Paramount owns via this big conglomerate includes, BET. We have Comedy Central. I think you've heard of other of the, CBS corporation properties. I mean, they've got things like SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? So you think, well, these are brands I've heard of, but Paramount is struggling. And so who the fuck is Skydance? I'm like looking on their website, wondering who it is. So what's going on here? Paramount wants to merge with Skydance. Skydance would be infusing it with like $8 billion. Well, Skydance is an entity started by the son of Larry Ellison. And so you might not know who Larry Ellison is, but he was a billionaire. He's like he's not as rich as Elon Musk, but he co-founded Oracle Company, right? And so he's an ultra billionaire, maybe in the top 20. And he has kids. And one of his kids, he actually helped back his different kids in their endeavors. And one of his kids, I think I'm going to share this screen with you so you can see what I'm looking at. One of his kids, let's just show the Google of it. One of his kids is this guy, David Ellison. And he helped David Ellison started Skydance Media. And he's sort of an actor producer. And Skydance Media, let's look. Skydance Media, you might think, well, who the heck are they? And I want to make sure that you can see what I'm showing you. Yes, you can. Skydance Media, they do things like this. They're putting out animation. They are, I don't know what they're fucking doing, but you may not have heard most of what they're doing. And I'm like, well, what the fuck are these guys doing? They did some Mission Impossible movie, what have you. Well, the bottom line is Larry Ellison has at least $6 billion in this deal. This is the father. His son is David Ellison, and they want to get this deal through. Now, apparently, Larry Ellison, the dad, is a huge Republican. David has given to Democratic causes, but nevertheless, David's been showing up by Donald Trump's side because they want this merger to go through, and Donald Trump will use carrots and sticks around people. And I don't know what the antitrust analysis is for allowing or not allowing this to go through, but when I looked at Skydance, even though I don't want to make them into a joke, they have some of on their animation team. They've got some of the biggest, most popular animators from the biggest popular entities like Pixar and so on. So Skydance has, billions of dollars concentrated in one place, and they want to take over Paramount. So that's what's going on now. Apparently, though, as you know, Donald Trump has this lawsuit against CBS because they didn't like an interview of Kamala Harris in the run-up to the election. And there is no case there. But this lawsuit was brought, and Donald Trump was asking for billions of dollars in his lawsuit. And like a lot of companies, you may remember that ABC had already caved to Donald Trump just to curry favor. And in this instance, they're actually thinking about whether to settle with Donald Trump just to curry favor with him. And now, in addition to the lawsuit against CBS, the reason why Bill Owens resigned is because my understanding is either Sherry Redstone or her people at the parent company of CBS is putting pressure on them, on their editorial content, to not be critical of Donald Trump, to not do things that will interfere with this merger. And Bill Owens said, I'm not doing it that way. So he quit. Now, I don't know if he quit or they said either do it or we're firing you, and that's why he resigned. But to have Scott Pelley, one of their big anchors, go up on television anyway and say what is going on is tremendous courage. The question, though, is whoever's in place next, do we know if they are going to silence these anchors? Or was this kind of a shot across the bow where these anchors are saying, fuck you, fire us? So we shall see, because I think CBS's 60 Minutes is an important property for them. So as much as it's important for this merger to go through, if they don't have a show to put on, then what? Okay, guys. Now, courage. We all need courage, and we all need the truth. And so let me go back to, because I'm obsessing on the tariffs. It's really important because this is going to dominate our lives. Let's talk about who they affect, right? We know that a tariff is an import tax and essentially becomes a regressive sales tax on people. Don't just trust me. Let's listen to this expert.
The president also says you may pay more here, right? But I got you on the tax cuts. In fact, he tweeted, when tariffs cut in, just this morning he said this, many people's income taxes will be reduced or eliminated, and he's going to focus on those making less than $200,000 a year. This is not going to get done by Memorial Day, is it?
Look, I don't know. That would be very fast for it to get done. The other thing we need to understand about tariffs, and I think this is obvious, is tariffs are highly regressive, meaning that poorer people end up paying a disproportionate percentage of the tariffs because they spend 100% of their paychecks on goods. So they're going to Walmart, they're going to their stores, they're buying goods with their paycheck. Wealthier people save a bigger percentage of their paycheck. So the tariffs are going to affect the poorer people more.
We got to leave it there, Gary. We're going to watch this, though.
Okay.
So that is Gary Cohn, worked in the last Trump administration, former, I think he was a president over at Goldman Sachs. So yeah, these are regressive. But one thing you heard at the beginning is Donald Trump is now trying to buy everyone's loyalty by claiming that people who make under $200,000 a year are going to somehow not pay income tax anymore. How's that going to pan out? How are you going to cut everyone's income tax under $200,000? Now suddenly we would get our full paychecks. And then what happens next? More cuts to social services. So we have more money in our pockets, but grandma starves to death because there's no Meals on Wheels. I mean, people get measles and there's no vaccines. I'm not exactly sure what his plans are, but none of this is going to come together in the way that he hopes. Now, my friends, I have got one more clip for you before we get to Crazy Town. Let's play it.
Eisen? It's been so interesting for me to be with y'all for the first 100 days of Trump, because when I first came on here and Trump's calling me out, we said, well, what's this first chapter going to look like? And Alicia, he's losing. And the arrogance, the overreach, that is a classic trait throughout millennia of history of autocrats and authoritarians. And if you look across those issues, court proceedings, that's where we started. He's lost almost 100 times in court. We've never seen anything like it. He's losing on these immigration cases. That's driving public revulsion against him, the opposite of populism. You can't rule with 30% MAGA base. The public is up in arms. We're seeing in some of these polls, 80% of Americans are saying, hey, Trump, you should be following court orders. So the litigation has struck a spark. Then you have the polls, both the electoral polls and the public polling. Look at that landslide loss, the Wisconsin Supreme Court case. It was a referendum on Musk. By the way, Musk, he's been driven out. Where is Musk? It's like, where's Waldo? He's gone. They're hiding him because it's been Doge such a failure. And finally, it always happens last. The political leadership, it's the 4 Ps. They're now following along.
Thank you, Norm. I needed that burst of energy. But we can't leave it there. Let's do our Crazy Town. And before I do Crazy Town, please like and follow. It makes all the difference in the world. Okay, here we go. Today in Crazy Town, my friends, is someone who just doesn't get it. You saw, Norm Eisen is filled with energy. Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker are filled with energy. Flippin' governor of Illinois, Jay Pritzker is filled with energy. We're ready to storm the barricades. And I gotta tell you, Chuck Schumer is really disappointing. I don't like to attack a Democrat. This isn't an attack. It's an observation that he needs to do what Lee Iacocca, chairman of Chrysler, or the company formerly known as Chrysler, used to say: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Let me play Chuck for you. We'll talk on the other side. Here we go. Crazy town.
A colleague from Georgia, Senator John Ossoff, told voters at a town hall that he strongly agrees that President Trump should be impeached. Do you agree with him? Would that be a priority if Democrats were to take back Congress?
Well, look, right now, President Trump is violating rule of law in every way. And we're fighting him every single day in every way. And our goal is to show the American people over and over again, whether it's the economy, whether it's tariffs, whether it's Russia and overseas, and whether it's rule of law, how bad he is. And, it's 2 years is too far away to predict. Our job is day to day to day to show who Trump is, what he is doing, and it's having an effect, as your poll showed. The American people are realizing.
Hit the streets.
You're not saying no.
Say that?
Look, it's too far away to even judge.
Okay.
There's more though. What I really wanted to say. There's another clip. Damn it. Here we have. I want to give you the other one. This is part one of Crazy Town. I did not get you the clip that you're going to be dying to see. So while I do that, I'm going to play you a little more Crazy Town. Here we go. Okay, guys. Here we go. Let's play this one.
Hurt every American. It's going to hurt the kids at the universities who've had nothing to do with protesting, but it's also going to hurt the kind of medical research and other kinds of great research that is done at Harvard and other universities. So we sent him a very strong letter just the other day, asking 8 very strong questions about why this isn't just a pretext.
Oh my God. Chuck, you sent Donald Trump a very strong letter with 8 questions? Chuck, Donald Trump doesn't read or give a fuck, Chuck. I cannot believe this guy is saying, well, we can't, so many days in the future, call, impeachment. The correct answer to that is, listen, Dana, it's on the Republicans. We need 67 senators in order to convict, and there comes the removal, right, from office. That is what they need. 67. Then a simple majority to ban him from ever serving again. 67. Right now, including, if I did my math correctly, including the 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, my understanding is there are only 47 Democrats in the Senate. So don't we need 20 Republicans? Chuck's fucking answer should be, where are the 20 Republicans who are going to stand up and get rid of this guy from office? He should be putting at their feet. And also, strongly worded letter? No. He should say, hit the streets. Why isn't Chuck Schumer in his jogging suit sitting on the Capitol steps having sit-ins? Where is the energy? He needs to fucking go. I'm just glad there's Cory Booker doing the work. I'm just glad there's J.B. Pritzker doing the work. But we need more. We need to hit the streets. No more of these strongly worded letters. It's great. Norm Eisen is right. The lawsuits show people he's a loser. But the reality is we need to do more. Much, much more. And I know that we absolutely can. I will see you guys tomorrow on Tuesday, bright and early. Let's fucking go.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday. And today there was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.